She argues with the gardener. Her voice is not raised. I stop to watch them. Stood opposite one another in her grand driveway, branches from a dark green shrub in his wheelbarrow. He does not know he is being argued with. He does not know how to read the angles of her body. One foot taking aim, the other carefully sets her balance. Chin skyward, it rips through the overhead pine tree. Her hand, I want more detail, I can't have it, throws his gaze towards the flower beds. He lifts his shirt almost to his nipples to wipe his face, thinks he is putting his masculinity to good use, flashing his hard work. Yet he cannot understand his own belly button, what it gives away despite himself, an unregulated softness. He is vulnerable. There is nothing he can do. Her energy, concentrated and precise, light through a magnifying glass. Left standing with his shirt balled into his fist, he pushes the wheelbarrow away, back into the garden to face his mistake. Oh, she is vigilant. She knows she is not alone. I am discovered, set alight. Like her, I stand my ground, dare her to wave, to give that hand to me. Miss. What else could I ask them to call me? Matron is the job title. Strange as it is, this might sound better, a nice word to wear. At least I could taste a little butch in it, a pair of crossed arms, a dramatic mole, a stiff back. No, miss instead.
How was writing in novel form different for you than poetry?
They're actually not that different. I feel like they inform each other a lot, and quite often I'm doing the way that I write, which is quite quick. Usually I'm doing both at once, so quite often I'm working on poetry while I'm working on a novel, or working on a short story while I'm working on those other two things, sometimes in one day, which is silly, really, but they're different because they're different forms, I think, weirdly, but I try and transfer a lot of the freedom in poetry. Not that I mean, that's a bit of a contrived thing to say, but I think poetry, you're able to push language a little bit harder, and I think I try and work with that in the novel as well. Like where I've pushed language in poetry, I'll try and replicate it. And quite often I'll write something in a poem that I then use for the novel. Like quite a lot of there's a line in Mrs. S that I realised was a complete duplicate that's knees like altars, and that's actually from a poem that I wrote. So quite often the best metaphors I think that I end up writing, and they are few and far between, have often started out in poems, just because I feel like I'm able to be more playful, maybe, I think. Yeah, that's probably how I answer that question.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. What inspired you to write Mrs. S?
I set out to write a horny lesbian book, so that was I just felt like there wasn't one, and so I just thought that I could give it a red hot go, and then I did, and it was not quite so straightforward, as horny lesbians often aren't. So it ended up being a bit more of a complicated. It ended up being darker than I thought it would be. Not that I don't think that not that I don't think sex isn't always a bit dark, because probably it is, but I think that it was much more complicated to write a book than I thought. That's probably where I read that. But yeah, it was very straightforward aspiration.